to the latest debate over health care costs on Beacon Hill. Earlier this week, state lawmakers held a hearing on a proposal that would require pharmaceutical companies to disclose what they spend on things like research and marketing, as well as what they charge for certain prescription drugs. It's the most far-reaching legislation of its kind being proposed in the nation, and in some cases, a state commission could even choose to cap drug prices. But not everyone's on board. Joining me now are both sides of the debate. Amy Whitcomb-Slemmer, Executive Director of Healthcare for All, supporter of the bill. Amy, it's good to see you.
Pleasure.
Glenn Batchelder is Executive Chair of Xylocor?
That's correct.
Yes, Jim. The Therapeutics and Immediate Past Chair of the MassBio Board of Directors. He opposes the measure. Good to see both of you. I am generally, Glenn, with Justice Brandeis. Sunshine is the best disinfectant. Why is sunshine not the best here?
Well, so it's really a matter of the ability to ever be able to track the costs.
What does that mean?
So you have products that are developed, lots of failures along the way. You bring in other technologies along the way. There is no way in a small company or even really in a large company that you can track them from beginning to end.
I'm a little unclear on something. The original bill had the ability of the Health Policy Commission to cap drug prices in certain circumstances. Is that still in this bill?
So they have an ability to review what and within this bill, if you could imagine being able to track the prices, then they could figure out whether the costs were appropriately aligned with the price.
So some variation on a cap, and you hate that, I assume. Is that a safe assumption?
I think it creates a lot of uncertainty and would have a very chilling effect on
uncertainty
the industry.
For who? But certainty for the consumer. Right?
So, well, actually, it doesn't create necessarily certainty for the consumer, and it would definitely create uncertainty for the people who are investing in the industry and that sort of fuel our ability to actually develop new drugs.
Amy, where's he wrong?
Well, we're pretty excited about this bill. We think that having an opportunity to see what is spent on marketing, what's spent on actual bench research to bring all these pharmaceuticals to market is a marvelous step forward for us to better understand what is going into the pricing for our prescription drugs.
But I think what Glenn was saying a minute ago is you really don't get an accurate price because the research and marketing of X may be this, but that doesn't include the 10, 20 failures that went before. How do you capture that? Because that's a cost to him doing business too.
So we are pretty optimistic that you can track those costs. And we actually want to be able to track some of the costs that are spent with government research. That's a taxpayer investment made early on through NIH, through the National Science Foundation.
Can't you get that through government? What's that his business? Can't you find out what the government is spending on this R&D stuff from them?
But currently there's no tracking, there's no allocation or credit given as those drugs that are the result of government research come to market.
But I think Amy really hit on it. There's really no tracking. And the way these technologies come together, so my last company, we brought in a technology where another company had spent over $500 million on it, but it's all sort of historic. But that was an essential part of us being able to develop the drug that we hope to really make a big difference in Parkinson's patients' lives. But our ability to track that would be extraordinarily inaccurate.
You know, Amy, I've read some of the news reports on this. While Glenn hasn't said it yet, one of the arguments that's arisen, 65,000 jobs in the industry. If it turns out there are higher thresholds of disclosure, capping, et cetera here, as opposed to the lower 49, why would a company like his decide to do business here? Do business across the border where they don't require disclosure, don't have the possibility of a cap? Isn't there some merit in that?
Well, in Massachusetts, we spend $7.3 billion a year in pharmaceuticals. We are a terrific investment. We have an unparalleled workforce in the country. We are an incredibly attractive place to set up shop. We also think that we should be in the vanguard of having public disclosure about what's going into the drug pricing.
Shouldn't it be Barack Obama, if I remember correctly, reading in his January budget, I think, requires some sort of comparable disclosure. That would apply to all 50 states. Why isn't that a far better solution so there's no competitive disadvantage?
Well, as you can imagine, there's an awful lot of controversy going on in D.C. We want to start in Massachusetts and think that there'll be an opportunity to lead the rest of the nation, just as we did with health reform.
You know, Glenn, one of the things I hope you can't deny is this is a problem in search of a solution. That same Health Policy Commission said the biggest driver of the rise in the healthcare costs in the most recent year, 2014, 13% increase in drug prices. Something has to happen. So if it's not the disclosure, if it's not the potential capping, what do you do to bring those costs under control?
So if you look back the previous years, it had actually barely increased at all. Last year, or in the 14th, there was a new drug, or a number of new drugs, particularly one called Sovaldi, that came to market, and it made a very big impact because it started to cure a disease and there was a big pent-up demand. But I think maybe taking a big step back on this whole topic, one of the real questions is how do we get drugs to patients and make them accessible
And affordable.
And affordable.
So
and that
tell
by
me how you
adding-
do it if it's not this.
So
What do
if
you do?
By adding costs to the system, let me start with, would not.
So what do you do? Forget what wouldn't work. What will work?
So we need to come together, all the stakeholders, and find a way where drugs, medical care in general, this isn't just about drugs, are affordable and accessible.
So what
for
is the way? I
patients.
mean, with all due respect, rhetorically, I assume we all agree. How do you get from here to there if this isn't the way, the route?
So we need a system where this doesn't end up on the patient. The challenge is for us collectively to solve it.
Can I just use Sovaldi as such a marvelous example, because patients who have hepatitis C are now able to be cured of that disease. That's extraordinary. Sovaldi is also the result of 25 years of government-funded research, and there's no sense of what the return on the public's investment, our investment of tax dollars, should be to offset a cost of a drug that ranges for individual patients between $80,000 and $300,000 a year. Again, a cure is extraordinary. It
But
has
Amy,
to
if
be
I can,
available.
if Glenn rhetorically is on board, his groups have a huge amount of power on Beacon Hill. My guess is, even though I'm not Nostradamus, is that something like this, as written, is not going to happen. Could you propose an alternative that would make him happy enough?
I think we want to ride the wave of disclosure and transparency. Massachusetts is going to be leading the way.
Could
in
you live without the
transparency.
cap if it was purely the disclosure
I very
thing?
much appreciate that the compromise that's currently being considered requires the Health Policy Commission to review drug prices and the discrepancy between sometimes the initial market price and the price that's
15
being charged.
seconds. Could you draft something that allowed you to disclose the kind of information that she and some members of the committee want without causing all the problems quickly, if you can?
So I think the right answer is that we focus on the value, that we ought to draft something that captures the value of the medicines and puts that in the context, because that's what really drives us. It's not the cost, and being able to track the cost, I really do not think is feasible.
We got to go. We'll come back and do it again. Amy, good to see you.
My
Glenn
pleasure.
as
Thanks
well.
so much.
The debate will continue.